Well, hello. So I have a lot more Q&A questions that I want to get through today, and some great topics for this one actually. So instead of me babbling for the next 2 minutes about nothing useful, let's jump into it right now. All right, first question is from Carl Hobelman. No, sure, Hobelman? Carl Hobelman. And Carl asks, tacos, burritos, or both? Man, actually, tacos, enchiladas, chili rellenos,
Use your words!
The chili peppers with the cheese inside. Good salsa, of course. Good salsa is absolutely imperative. And, you know, beans and rice. But the chili relleno, the chili pepper thing is complete key to ultimate, you know, Tex-Mex, Mexican food type stuff.
So thank God that's over.
Kevin Harrington. Hi, Kevin. Kevin actually asked several things. Kevin says on this one, so obviously Wampler makes fantastic pedals, arguably, but there are several other components to a pedal board. What advice can you provide on the subject of the importance of quality cables, both instrument cables and pedal connectors, power supplies, pedal order, and making our pedal boards more efficient? Well, Kevin, wow, there's a bunch there. So I would say this is completely my opinion. This is not the gospel truth because there is no such thing as the gospel truth of pedal board stuff. So for me, I like a good quality cable. So I like, there's two of my, hang on. Okay, there's two of my favorite brands. One of them is Hosa, and I love these. And the other one that I can't find right now, I think it's, I don't see it laying around. I must have put it up yesterday. But it's BTPA. Both those two companies, nothing wrong with other ones. In fact, Rattlesnake Cable's a good friend of mine. I don't have any of his yet. I probably should because he's a super good guy. But right now I'm using BTPAs and Hosa. And I just think it's not really like a sound thing. It's more of a durability thing. I can drag them behind a truck for like 10 miles and they'll still work. I can, you know, throw them in a bag and throw them in the back of a car and basically just abuse them, and they always work. That's a big one for me. I always use a buffer, and I think the real high-end cables, if you're using a buffer up front, you're not going to notice that much difference. You may notice a little bit, but at the end of the day, I mean, your tube amp's going to sound different than any change in cables from, you know, place to place and temperature and everything else. So I don't put that much of importance on like stupidly high quality cables. I just think there's more important things to worry about. Same thing with power. I mean, I think what I'm using on the board is, I believe they're cables that were made by BTPA. And for a pedal board, I have a little sideboard that I take places, and it's just a little small board. And what I think I'm just using like a daisy chain from Visual Sound or True Tone or whatever it's called now. And that's just a quick, you know, board I can put together and throw it in the back of the car and take it somewhere. Power supplies is a big deal. Some power supplies are really noisy. Some say they're isolated outputs, and they're really not isolated outputs. And you'll notice that with a power supply that's just not a high quality, you're gonna have a lot more noise, and you may have some hums and other types of things that a higher quality power supply would get rid of. There's several different types I like. True Tone makes a good one. Voodoo, of course, makes a good one. I've been using the Friedman stuff because Dave's a good friend of mine, and he just came out with, I think it was pretty recent, came out with a power supply. It's fantastic. So I've been using the Friedman power supplies on our show boards, and you never know, maybe we'll make one soon. Who knows? Pedal order, I mean, you hear so many people talk about pedal order. Like, there's just tons. Everyone has their opinion on what the right pedal order is. There is no right pedal order. I mean, that's just the truth. The truth is that the right pedal order is the one that you like. Now, I have my preferences. I like compression, overdrive, distortion, maybe a little more overdrive after that. I don't really use chorus that much. If I was going for the 80s thing, I'd run it after distortion. Vibe before dirt, wah before dirt, delays, reverbs, phase I put before dirt, flange I put before dirt. Just a personal preference. EQ after any dirt or in the effects loop, especially if I'm using like a dirt channel from, you know, like a Marshall or, you know, something like that. I don't know if you saw that or not, but yeah. One of those guys. Top being a super, I can't even really talk about that amp, but I can say that Dave Friedman built it, and it's freaking awesome. I think it's a prototype or something, but it's just killer. It's an amazing amp. Anyways, so if I'm using dirt from the amp, then I'll throw the delays, reverbs, choruses, EQ. I'll throw that all in the effects loop, pretty much, unless the effects loop just sucks. And in which case, then I just try to make it work however I can. Sometimes you can put a buffer inside the effects loop, and it helps solve some problems with pedals. Sometimes not. Sometimes you got to kill some volume going into your pedals, like with a volume pedal, and then boost the volume back up with like a clean booster, like our dB plus or decibel plus or any sort of clean booster. Sometimes you can do that. That also can cause more noise, because anytime you increase gain, you can get more noise and stuff. Just making your pedal boards more efficient. I mean, the big thing is just be smart about how you connect power, I think, honestly. So if you have an adapter and you have everything daisy chained, just please understand it's going to be noisier than normal. It just is. Especially if you're connecting pedals that have different digital components to it, whether it is bypass, like the relay bypass actually has a digital component to it. Basically that switch is talking to this microcontroller saying, hey, when this guy hits the switch, make sure you turn those relays on and off in this sort of fashion. So you have like this digital ground plane and power for the digital. There's all this complicated crap that goes along with it inside the pedal that can add to noise when you start stringing those all together. So I like to run all that stuff on an isolated output. Strictly digital pedals, mechanical switches, strictly analog pedals, mechanical switches like, you're talking Distortion Plus, Tube Screamers, stuff like that. They don't use that much power, and you can pretty much get away with daisy chaining several of those in a row. It's not a big deal. But like I said, at a pinch on my board, when I'm taking it to a gig somewhere, the noise that I'm getting is not anything the audience is going to notice. So I don't really even worry about that. Unless it becomes like a gigantic problem, and then I got to, but I prefer to not have to worry with in that situation. I just like a grab and go sort of thing. Kevin Fowler asks, have you messed with any of the microphone modeling systems like Slate's Digital VRS8? Thoughts on the technology? It's more of a home recording question, but it's a spillover from guitar amp modeling. Actually, Kevin, I haven't messed with it much, but I did see, I think it was a YouTube video from Nam. It was when the band was going by, and he got really kind of pissed off about it. The band was going by and got angry, and he was trying to show, the technology. I think it was that VSR8. And I thought, actually, it sounded really cool. I thought the idea of it and the implementation and the way that he went about it was pretty great. And he's known to do really good stuff, and he's a bright dude, so yeah, I'm into it. But I also like plugins too, even though I work with pedals and amps and hardware. I also love plugins and all kinds of stuff like that. I'd like to mess with MIDI controllers and just have fun with Logic Pro. That's another favorite pastime of mine. So yeah, totally into it. And let's see, Tom Gilliam asks, Brian, why do you sit in this chair and spin around and make everyone dizzy? Oh, no, actually, he didn't ask that. That's actually just a bad habit. Tom Gilliam asks, do certain pedals work better with certain tube types and pickup types? It's not so much about the tube, it's about the amp in general. So, yeah, some pedals work better, for example, with a Vox. I'm sorry, some pedals work better with a Vox. Some pedals work better with like a blackface type of thing. Some pedals might work better with a Marshall. And better is in air quotes because there is no better. So I may think that a Tube Screamer sounds wonderful on a Blackstar and horrible on a Blackstar. On a Blackface, I may think that a Tube Screamer sounds wonderful on a Blackface style amp, but maybe I think it's horrible on a Vox style amp, but you may not. And I don't feel that way, but I'm saying just for an example, it's really all down to, I say this all the time, there's no right thing. It's just my opinion, and I'm just a dude who makes pedals and, talks to cameras on YouTube. I don't really think there is a real answer. I think that it's just opinion. So I like Klon style stuff or Tube Screamer type stuff into a dirty amp, especially when it's like a Marshall type of thing, and also into a crank Blackface if I can crank it up all the way and get that amp itself distorting. It's a little flubby on the bottom end, so I'll use like a Klon style pedal with its tumness or whatever. I'll use that style of pedal or a tube screamer and just kind of shape the overall EQ before it. So I think dirt pedals in general tend to be way more finicky with amps, the whole architecture of the amp itself, rather than whether it's a KT88 or 6L6. I don't think it's really based on the power tube that much. Pickup types absolutely as well. So there's some pickups that are really hot. Whenever you go into a certain type of distortion circuits, you can actually oversaturate that. Like there's a circuit called a mu amp, and our Pinnacle's based on it. The Brownie, I think, from CMAT's based on. There's a bunch of pedals that are based on mu amp or mu amp, depending on where you're from. Here we call it mu amp, but sometimes I use them interchangeably. But when they're based on that sort of technology, running at 9 volts with certain types of FETs, sometimes you'll have a little bit of oversaturation. You can kind of compensate with that. We've done videos on this. You can kind of compensate with lowering your pickup a little bit so it's not quite so close to the string. That does help. I think that you'll find guitars in general will sound radically different. So, if I'm playing a Les Paul versus a Stratocaster, if I'm running through a tube screamer and then I'm running through a deluxe reverb, two radically different sounds. They're going to respond differently. They're going to with the pedal and with the amp. They're going to respond differently. They're going to sound different, of course, and you may not get the same result. Richard Boyer asks, "What drives Wampler innovation? What, if any, new technology will change the direction of how we pursue the ultimate tone?" I've said it on the last one. I've said it a million times. What drives us is really what customers think, what they say, how they feel about what we're putting out, what others are putting out, the comments they ask us to include on, pedal ideas. All that stuff really is what drives us. I'm not, for the most part, there's exceptions, but for the most part, I don't really feel like we're the type of company where I just build what I want, and if you guys like it, then fine. I like to kind of approach it more like I exist because of you. If it wasn't for you guys who bought our stuff or who were interested in our stuff, we simply wouldn't exist, and this would be nothing but a hobby. So I'm kind of indebted to you. So everything I do, whether it's videos, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, whatever, all the content, all the blog stuff, that is basically an attempt to try to help you guys, to bring value to you, to entertain you, to bring you some sort of information that may help you and give you some sort of enjoyment. So, same thing with pedals. Your second part, Richard, is what, if any, new technology will change the direction of how we pursue the ultimate tone? In my opinion, it seems like music trends kind of changed the ultimate tone. So I'm kind of an old dude. I'm 43 years old right now. I was a young kid, but I still was around playing guitar in the 80s. So I remember very vividly when people were using one of my favorite preamps. That guy right there. When people were using 80A MP1s, and you had to have that in your rack, and your rack was the size of a refrigerator, and you had all kinds of rack effects in that thing. And I remember that time. I also remember whenever there were people that were going to the crate amps and the solid state stuff, kind of gravitating toward that a little bit towards the later 80s. Then it kind of went back and people got rid of the rack stuff and went more to pedals, and that was like the alternative rock movement, I guess, or the grunge movement. They called it back then. I hated that term, alternative. It's like boutique. I don't consider us boutique. It's just a silly word. But anyways, there you go, man. And then lastly, Kevin Harrington says, how would you improve my board? How would you improve my pedal board? And let's put a link up on it. Let's put a link of his board right here. Kevin, my friend, we know each other very well from the Wampler Tone group on Facebook, don't we? Yes, we do. I'm going to have to be honest with you. You need to invest in zip ties. It will make your life easier, more simple, and it will clean your board up. As far as pedal placement, I mentioned this earlier, that you can look at that for pedal placement. Maybe have power covered, I don't know. And maybe you might need to upgrade your power, I don't know. See what you think. If you're having noise problems, maybe think about upgrading it. If not, don't worry about it. But yeah, zip ties, my friend. So I hope you guys like this video. Again, these Q&As, if you dig them, make sure you let me know. If you don't dig them, then make sure you let me know, because like I said, I'm purely doing this to help you guys out and to try really to bring what little knowledge that I may have in the pedal industry and try to bring it to you and give you some good advice, things that help you enjoy playing guitar better and enjoy the way your guitar sounds better. Please leave a comment below. Let me know what you think. Talk to you in a couple days. See you later.
You know, when I was her age, we didn't have stuff like that. No, sir, we didn't know. We didn't have those guitar pedals, no, sir.